Once again, it is the Legal Authority Podcast with
Judy Goldberg
and Jay Rathman. Good to see everybody, and thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you get our new episodes every couple of weeks. You can go to the Legal Authority Podcast or the legalauthority.com/podcast, and you can subscribe there too, so that every 2 weeks you get emailed the new episodes. And this is a great opportunity for young lawyers thinking about going out on their own, or if you've recently gone out on your own. We have guests on every week that have done the same thing, and they give you their perspectives and advice and things that they did well and pitfalls maybe to try to avoid. So today's guest is another perfect example of that. Judy, tell us who we're talking to today.
We're talking to Sam. He's out in Des Moines, Iowa. He has a unique practice.
Yep.
I found it fascinating.
Yeah.
A sole practitioner like I.
Yep.
But the way he manages, I'll let it go. So I don't want to go give it all away.
All right. Well, Sam Rawls is coming up on this episode of the Legal Authority Podcast. So let's take it away. Fire it up.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Legal Authority Podcast, presented by thelegalauthority.com. Here are your hosts, Jay Rathman and Judith Goldberg.
Welcome to another edition of the Legal Authority Podcast. My name is Jay Rathman with my beautiful esteemed co-host, Judy Goldberg.
Good morning.
How are you, Judy?
Okay, feeling good.
Good. What a nice day it is in Boca, right? Ready to go to
Beautiful.
The beach?
I am.
There you go. She's actually wearing like shorts and a bathing suit under her shirt there.
I came dressed for the interview.
Yeah. So today we have an awesome guest today. He's been a longtime client of ours at Digital Horsepower. One of my favorite people, Sam Rawls, is joining us. How you doing, Sam?
Hi, Jay. Doing great.
Awesome. So he practices mostly personal injury and criminal law in West Des Moines, Iowa. And we were just talking about Brock Purdy, like the second best thing to come out of Iowa, behind Sam, of course. And been with us for, I guess, about 6 years, and we've really kind of developed a good friendship. We text all the time, just about life and so forth, and making sure our families are good and whatnot. So it's just a really cool relationship. But what I want to do is I want to kind of go back to the beginning. When did you know you wanted to become a lawyer? Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll kind of go forward from there.
I don't know that there was a specific time, really. When I was a kid, I had a good opinion of lawyers. I kind of thought of them as the guy who sticks up for the underdog and righted wrongs and that sort of thing. So I liked the concept. And then, when I went to college, I majored in philosophy and politics. Mm-hmm. And so with those two majors, law school is kind of a logical next step.
Right. So then you go to law school, you graduated from law school. Did you work in a prosecutor's office, or did you go to work for a firm? Like, how did you get your start actually practicing law on a daily basis?
Yeah, actually, when I got out of law school, my initial intention was to try to start my own office. And I realized pretty quickly that you really need some practical experience in order to make it work. And so I worked as a prosecutor for a while, and then I went to work for a defense firm. And then eventually I started a firm with some other lawyers. Mm-hmm. And as things progressed, I became the sole practitioner that I am today.
That's awesome. So you got a few years of experience working for a firm. Did you learn much or anything when you were working for that firm about, how do I word this? Were you able to take some things from that actually taught you how to manage your own firm, whether that's, getting clients, how to hire the right staff, how to assign tasks the right way, manage your team, things of that nature?
I did. The lawyer that I worked for was also a sole practitioner. He had 4 or 5 of us that worked under him, but no partners. He was very involved in all aspects. He worked closely with all of us. I really learned a lot from the guy. In fact, one thing I remember is that he was a big believer in advertising. Mm-hmm. And at the time, he was the first guy in Des Moines to take out a full-page ad on the back of the phone book.
Oh, wow. That was expensive back then, too.
Oh, yeah. At the time, it was it was very expensive, and no one had thought of doing that before, and he did it, and it turned out to be really a successful move. And he always kept that back page ad as long as he was in practice, and yeah, so that's just an example, but very I don't think I could have done it on my own without having worked for that guy first.
That's awesome. Boy, times have changed, and nobody reads the Yellow Pages anymore. In fact, I don't know if they even publish it anymore.
I don't think they
I don't
do.
think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I just completely off topic. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and that's my love for the Buffalo Bills. That's where that comes from. And there was a company there called White Directory, and I had a lot of friends that worked there, like as salespeople and whatnot. They ended up getting bought out like in the early 2000s by Hearst Media for like $450 million, I think the number was. And literally like 4 years later, they were done. Like, what a colossal waste of money, and nobody saw it coming. And Google just took the world by storm. And now it's like, Google's everything. I don't care what anybody says. They are everything. You have Microsoft, they have Bing and MSN and whatnot. Then you have Yahoo, which most people don't realize. Bing actually powers the search results for Yahoo. So the two of them combined make up for like 10 or 12% of the search volume. That's how big Google is. Google's the other 88 to 90% of searches in the U.S. are done by Google. It's crazy. But there's good reason for it, right? How did they grow to be so big? They grew to be so big because everybody continues to use them because Google gives you amazing search results. Like when you Google search something, you never go to page 2 because Google knows what to serve up as an exact match of what you're looking for. It's remarkable. But how they do it is even more interesting. If you and Judy and I were in the same room and we all had our laptops open and we all searched the exact same thing, we're going to get a variance of results because Google tracks every search that you do, every search Judy does, every search that I do. They learn us as people. Like, what do I search for? What results do I click? So what are the most common types of results I'm looking for? What is my intent? Am I trying to research? Am I trying to buy? And for that reason, Google serves up different results based on your search history. And so it's pretty amazing. They're all about their user experience, and they are so complex that if you can't figure out how they work, it's problematic. When you understand it, like we're ingrained in this stuff, every day. I have a full-time team of 11 people. This is all we do. And, we stay on top of it enough to be able to keep up with it. But it can be a real challenge. Talk about continuing education. You guys got to do, every couple of years, you got to do something. Every day, I got to do something.
Well, that's why we get the results with you, Jay.
Yep,
Really,
that's true.
the ever-changing, you're right on top of everything new.
We try to be.
And it really is amazing. It's even noticeable to me that if I try to use a different search engine than Google, I don't get the same quality results.
Right. But that's why Google's the juggernaut. Everybody uses Google because they're so consistent. It's really amazing. And they are, I don't want to say that they're strict, but like some of the things that are ranking factors that people never think of are like, how fast your website loads, right? I mean, anybody in our industry knows that load speed is a big deal, but as an attorney, you would never think that, right? Wow, how fast your site loads is a ranking factor. When somebody goes to your website, do they bounce right off, or are they on your website for a little bit? Are they looking at multiple pages? What's their average time on site? What's their average time looking at each page? The longer that is, Google says, well, okay, if you're on a page for 3 minutes, you might be reading an article. It must be a pretty good article, so maybe we'll push you a little domain authority. Whereas if they bounce right off your site, then that doesn't help you. That can hurt you, right? So there's just so many things. We were just talking to another attorney recently, Joe Lawson. We were talking about Google reviews and how Google reviews are so important. They are the number one ranking factor now, Sam, for local search. Oh. It's crazy. There's just so many things. But anyway, enough about the technical stuff. Get back to the fun stuff. So when you opened your practice, were you nervous, scared, kind of like, what do I do if I don't get clients as fast as I need to get them? How am I going to pay my bills? What was that like?
Yeah,
what was your feeling, and how'd you get through it?
Yeah, paying the bills is a little nerve-wracking sometimes, and but you have to do it. It's one of those things that I don't think, at least most people are never going to be in a position where it's not going to be nerve-wracking to quit your job and start something new. So you just have to kind of pull the plug and do it. I was fortunate to meet some people, some clients that I established a good rapport with. And, back then word of mouth was practically everything. If you couldn't afford a back page ad on the phone book, word of mouth was everything. And that's how everybody got their clients. And so I met some people who knew that I was young, knew that I was starting, thought I did a good job. And I felt like they really went out and looked for opportunities to tell people that I was a hard worker and would do a good job.
That's great.
I think it was due to them that I was able to make it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what were some of the pitfalls that if you could do it over again, you would have avoided or done differently?
Trying to take every case that comes in the door. You need the money. And so it's tempting when somebody comes in that has something they need done that isn't really something you do, to think, okay, well, I'll just go to the library and learn how to do it, and you take the case, and you take every traffic ticket that comes in, and
right.
If there's a slip and fall with questionable liability, you take it, and you just think you'll just work your butt off, and you don't want to see any money walk out the door, right. And so you spread yourself a little too thin, and you have to make yourself be selective, right. Even when it feels scary to do that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But, without the volume of the calls, it's very hard to be selective.
Right.
These are the people that are walking in the door, and then you have to close it, right? Do the consult and close it. So I found, and I was with as an employee right out of law school, went to a small firm who, interestingly, he was more of an advertiser, marketing guy than a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And he put me on TV. So I was new in town, didn't even live in Danbury, Connecticut, lived over in New York.
I mean, Sam, look at the red hair. I would call her.
and that started the brand. But beyond that, it's waiting for those phone calls.
Yep. Yeah. It's like a chicken and egg, right? You have to have the phone calls.
That's right.
to be able to have the opportunities, right? And so that, like, one of the things that I learned from you, Judy, and Sam, you may have an opinion on this too, is when we started working together, and this was like 15 years ago, and all of a sudden the calls were coming in, you were like, well, your closing rate went up because you were already so busy, you didn't need any of those cases. And so when they would come in, it was almost like they needed to convince you on why you should take their case.
I was, prior to you, I was so grateful. Someone came in, I was giving no charge consults, and it was taking an hour. My paralegal, who's fabulous, with me for 25 years, she begged me to stop doing it. And I found that it wasn't productive. You can get to the bottom line. You can listen, impress, do what you need to do, find out about the case, determine if you want to take it. Much easier. 20 minutes, it's done. And I think there's a sense that they know what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Once they know once it's in their mind that you're a great lawyer and can help them, now it's them convincing you to take the case more than you convincing them to give it to you. Would you agree with that, Sam?
Oh yeah, I do. And I agree. I still do free initial consultations, but I do them now over the phone.
Right.
Because I can always find 5 or 10 minutes to talk to somebody and get an idea of whether or not I want to move forward, and then set up an in-person meeting. Right. So I don't schedule in-person consultations for free with new clients anymore.
Right.
How much of your business now is interfacing remotely?
We use MyCase, which is a platform that you use for keeping your clients updated with what's going on in their
like
case. So a lot of that, but I don't do much in the way of video conferencing with clients unless it's a hearing or a deposition or something, or if it's somebody who's in another state, possibly.
Right. So you like to meet with your clients face to face as often as possible.
If I'm gonna take the case, I like to meet face to face, if possible, at least one time. Right.
No, that's cool. One of the things that I also learned from you, Judy, and this is funny, you may have a thought on this, Sam. So Judy would get a pretty good volume of calls, like 70, 80 calls a month sometimes. Yeah. And so she had a lot of people coming through the door, and she would ask them, well, what made you choose me? What made you want to talk to me? And one of the common answers, I still think this is funny. One of the common answers was, well, you were ranked number 1, so Google thinks that you're the best lawyer. Google doesn't know any of this stuff. Right. She's ranked number 1 because of the marketing that she does to get there. But literally, they thought that so many people thought that, well, she was ranked number 1, so Google thought she was the best lawyer, so they want the best.
They do. They think if you're on page 1, that the sooner they can, if you're on the top there's a reason, and it has to be that you're the best. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's the old saying, you can lead a horse to the water, can't make them drink. I mean, that leads the horse to the water, and you just let them take their own drink, I guess. But whatever works, right? But at the end of the day, things have obviously changed over the last 5 or 6 years for you, where you're getting a pretty consistent lead flow. You're getting cases coming in. You have options of if you don't take this case, it's not going to change your lifestyle. Obviously, everybody needs money, but it's a different feeling now, right? Since we've started to work together, we've had a lot of success, and we've been able to drive case leads to you, with some of the stuff that we're doing, on your site and off your site, driving to it. Talk about that a little bit. How's that kind of changed, knowing that when you wake up in the morning, there's cases that are waiting to talk to you?
Well, it's a good feeling, and you don't have to take every case yourself. If you collaborate with other lawyers, you can spread it out, handle more stuff. That gives you, a more consistent stream, so that you don't have periods of time where you're waiting for a case to be resolved and get paid. It takes a lot of stress off.
Yep. No, that's great. And you have a kind of a different approach than some of our other guests, where like we were talking with another lawyer recently. He's got a staff of like 8 or 9 people, and he's a solo, but his case intake volume is so insane that they are all extremely busy. You kind of like to do everything yourself. You don't really have a staff. You're really the true definition of a solo, and that works for you and your lifestyle and what you want to be able to do. Talk a little bit about why you did that instead of, building this big, monstrous, law firm.
Well, it was unfortunate. I was in a firm, and we had a lot of employees, and my father got sick, and I was having him to take him up to Mayo every other week for 4 days at a time. And so I was just going to step back for a while, and I had my partners buy me out of the practice, and I decided I would open a small office, and I was either going to have to pay to have it fully staffed when I wasn't going to be there a lot of the time, or invest some money in technology, which, at the time, a phone that I could take with me and plug in at the hotel, it was all very cutting edge at the time.
Sure.
But I decided to go that way. And what I found out was making myself do some of those things myself, right down to even using the court's electronic data management system, learning how to log in, file my own stuff. I got a really good handle on how much time it takes to do different things that I was paying other people to do before.
Right.
And so now what I do is I have independent contractors. I have paralegals that I work with, some out of state, on a case-by-case basis, an assignment-by-assignment basis. A couple of them I really enjoy working with. I collaborate with other lawyers. So if I have a case that comes in, an example is I work with a lawyer who's a really knowledgeable brain injury attorney. If I get a case that involves a potential brain injury, I collaborate with him. Depending on the type of case it is, we work out it's not just send it to him and take a referral fee.
Right.
We actually work the case together.
Right.
And that allows me to leverage his staff and his overhead on cases I need to.
That's so smart.
And it's so great for me because not only has it worked out for me financially, but it gives me so much flexibility and freedom.
Yep.
I can work from home. I can work from my office. I can work on the road if I feel like it. I can leave and go get my kid and take her to do something fun when I feel like it.
Yep.
The reason I did it was unfortunate, but I'm so glad I did because I like this form of practice so much.
Yep. So the takeaway there for the young lawyers that are listening, that either want to go start their own practice or have started to investigate it or have recently done so, is that you don't always have to have staff. You don't always have to think, well, gee, I need a paralegal, I need a legal assistant, I got to pay the rent. Now my nut's $10,000 a month before I even, take $1 for myself. Holy shit, what happens if I don't bring in $10,000 worth of fees, right? It can get really scary and take your focus off the ball. You don't have to do it that way. You absolutely can do it, the way you're doing it. Like Joe Lawson, another guest that we had on recently. This guy was a New York City police officer, NYPD, went to law school while he was a cop, started practicing law while he was a cop, taking on clients, and started literally all on his own. And now he's built into this huge firm. But perfect example. I mean, Sam did the same thing, still does it. I mean, Sam, if you knew that you could get 50 cases a month right now, but you needed a big staff to be able to run it, would you do it? Or would you just like, I just want to stay doing what I'm doing?
I would not change it. I like it this way. I would just take those cases and collaborate with other lawyers, just divide them up, decide who I'm going to do which case with, depending on different people's skill sets. One of my good friends has his business model is the opposite of mine.
Right.
He, like you were describing, has a huge number of staff. He spends, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars a month on advertising. He is got tons of support, but yet he's always busy with, if nothing else, personnel issues and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's true too.
He likes it. Yeah, he likes it. It works for him. I do a lot of cases with him, but I like this. This works for me. But
at the end of the day, you probably and him aren't that off in your personal compensation.
Potentially, we haven't compared tax returns, but
right.
neither one of us is going hungry.
Well, hey, listen, if you can drink that Johnny Walker Blue, man, then you're doing all right.
Well, the constant here, the constant here is bringing in the business.
Yep.
How we choose to manage it, how large a firm we want, how many cases a month,
yep.
how much we want to charge. But we have to be smart business people. Usually lawyers aren't, in my experience. Mm-hmm. But the best thing I ever did, fortunately for me, was to meet you, Jay, and I had a lot of experience before with, unfortunately,
you
firms
learned all the
wrong things.
Yep. Sam had that too.
But all we need is the opportunity. We need the clients to come in. Then we can choose how we facilitate, how we manage, and how we are as lawyers.
Yep.
What we like in life.
So, Sam, let's talk a little bit about once you and I started working together. I believe it was 2016, 2017, something like that. I mean, it's been 6 years, probably 7 years. What has it been like working with an agency that kind of knows what they're doing, right? To be able to help you with your online presence and turning, your website into kind of a case intake machine, a way to generate consistent case flow and so forth.
It's really been great. And as you know, or may recall, before you, I worked with a very large company.
Yep.
And here's kind of what I tell people, Jay, is that just as lawyers typically are not, always great businessmen, we're also not typically great marketing and IT guys.
Right.
And so when we're talking to somebody about online advertising and SEOs and clicks and that sort of thing, unless you're going to hire somebody full time to be on your staff to try to track down where every call comes from and that sort of thing, we are as lawyers kind of vulnerable to hope we're getting a good deal for what we pay.
That's right.
It's a very good point.
But even though we're not always great businessmen or marketing people or IT people, litigators tend to be good people.
Yep.
Reading people is a lot of what we do. We try to read jurors. We try to read witnesses. That's kind of our skill set. And so what I like about working with you and what I like initially about working with you and Stephen and the others that I've worked with at your agency is that I feel like you guys really do care.
We do.
About whether I do well. And you really do want me to do well. And so I figure I'm not an expert in that. You are, but if I have a good feeling about the people, then that's the way that I can make a good judgment. I mean, of course, the phone has to ring too. Don't get me wrong. If I have a good feel and good judgment about the people that I'm working with, I'm more likely to trust my opinion about that than I am to trust my opinion about whether I think my back whatever is generating clicks or calls.
Sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, you do have to get results. It doesn't matter how nice we are. We have to get your results in order for this to work long term. And it's been 6-7 years. So, I mean, that kind of speaks to itself.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. And I'm very happy with the results I've got, as you know, because I would tell you if I wasn't.
Yeah. Well, we've become really good friends, right? I mean, we text each other on the weekends, and, you know, we've each had some issues in our lives recently that have come up. And, you know, I think I mentioned to you what I just went through a month ago, and obviously I know what you went through. And, you know, there's been, I don't want to get too specific, but we're really friends. Like, there's been some situations where, you know, you weren't sure what you were going to do to navigate your practice for a little bit. So, you know, initially you would put things on hold with us for a little bit, and then a couple months later, when we had another conversation, you had learned that we just never stopped doing the work. I just didn't bill you for a couple months because we're friends, and you know, I wanted to have your back no matter what. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall that, you know, once things settle down and you realize you're, you know, in a good situation with your personal health stuff, that you're not going to stop practicing law. So I'm not going to stop helping you. And that's kind of
well, that meant a lot. It really did. That's a meaningful gesture. And you and I have become friends, and I feel like I'd be comfortable discussing personal issues with you,
and we do.
I like working.
Yeah, and we do that. So yeah, I mean, I look, I'm a SAP. I like to be friends with my clients, and when you work for somebody or work with someone for 6-7 years, I mean, Judy, you and I were together for like 15 years, and now we're like best buddies. We hang out all the time down here in South Florida because you live here now. This is what I really enjoy about the business. The X's and O's and the ones and the zeros, you know, that's technical stuff. I'm a math geek, right? So like I get into that. You're not going to like that. You're not going to like that. But that's what, you know, makes me go. But
well, you know, you've been my go-to guy. I mean, you know, Sam, I was having an issue with. I was a sap when it came to collecting my bills.
Her billing was terrible.
How many retainers can they give, and how fast do we go through it? I mean, it's insane. Yep. And I would always feel comfortable in calling Jay. You know, listen, I have a problem. What do you think? And I mean, he came up with an idea here in Florida in mediation in billing a lump sum upfront, lump sum, non-returnable, and without billing hours.
Because nobody was doing it. And
I said, no, I'm going to, you know, I'm immediately cutting my fee by 2/3. How can I do that? But it works. It absolutely works. So he's my marketing maven as well. Yeah. So it's just great. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know your business, right? We only work with law firms to this point. I mean, we may open up to contractors at some point in the future. We're thinking about, you know, putting up a whole nother division of the company with another set of staff to be able to do that. But to this point, I've only worked with law firms. So I have to know your business, right? Because I have to know how you need things to work. Like I understand how you guys get paid, whether you're doing a PI case and it takes a while, or you're doing a billable case and you're getting paid up front. You know, what your cash flows are like, what your problems are like, what your challenges are like. Because if I can help you solve some of that stuff, I become even more valuable, right? And my company becomes more valuable. And so we've really tried to do that, especially like in your case, Sam. I think early on we had talked about, you know, maybe how to dial in some processes. And I actually have a couple other things that I want to talk to you about offline that we've recently started to do that I think can help you with some automation. And, you know, we can literally tie into my case with an integration. That's something new to us, but it's awesome. So, you know, it's only onward and upward for your firm as far as we're concerned. So,
well, I have a question, Sam. Can you speak to branding? What did you do in that area for yourself, your firm?
You know, well, I logo primarily, and then Jay. So
not to sound self-serving, really? but when we started with Sam, he didn't really have much of a brand because he had just never put a lot of focus on it.
Right.
And then we started to build, and you know, now it's working. I mean, he's all over the internet, and you know, things are great. And obviously, he's an expert in his field. He anybody that wants to be a true solo, just doing their own thing, you two are the best to learn from, right? I mean, you had Sarah for a long time, but Sam's kind of on his own. So you guys do everything on your own, and I mean, you're both super successful in your own rights. I mean, financially, you're both happy, you know, and so forth. You don't need a big staff to make a lot of money, right? But in that, as we wrap up, Sam, what would you say if you were talking to a room full of young attorneys that are thinking about going out on their own? They're currently working for someone, or they just hung out their shingle and maybe they're struggling a little bit. What is the message from the Sam Rawls podium about, you know, what to avoid, you know, what to excel with? You know, here's what worked for me, here's what didn't work for me, and here's how you should just zero in on becoming successful. What would be your advice to them?
You know, I've kind of already mentioned that, you know, make relationships with your clients, you know, become friends with your clients to a certain degree, like you and I have.
Yep.
Those people, if they trust you and they know that you mean the best for them, they will call you up to ask you advice on things other than needing you on a case. They'll tell their friends who have a problem, we'll call Sam, you know, he'll give you good advice. He'll tell you what he thinks. And so that it just starts to grow. Yep. That network starts to grow. And the other thing I would go back to is don't be afraid to be selective. Even though you feel like you need all the business you can get, when those questionable cases come in, don't be afraid to tell yourself, I can make it. I need to focus on the people that I've made an obligation to and have hired me, and I need to work for them. And don't make the mistake of taking every case. And last, I would just say, stick with it, because you often see lawyers leave employment to hang their own shingle. You very seldom see lawyers who have started a firm change their mind and go back to working for someone else.
Right.
So there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's worth the initial effort. That's what I would tell people.
And obviously you're a believer in doing something online. Get your presence out there to online, how critical that is, especially in the early stages, right? Because you need something that's going to bring case intake. And Google doesn't care if you're a brand new lawyer or you've been doing it for 25 years. If you have the right agency working with you that's an expert in their field, that knows how to brand you and knows how to get intake for you, that solves a lot of problems. But you have to be able to make that investment too. I mean, it's not the cheapest thing in the world. But
it isn't. But I should have said that too, because starting a firm now is different than starting a firm when I did.
Right.
Because you can't rely now on word of mouth. Everybody goes to Google to decide who they're going to hire. And so you have to do it. And I would also tell people, don't make the mistake of spending just enough to have it not matter. Right. Then it's just wasting money. Yep. And some people, I think, make that mistake.
I agree. Yeah. I totally agree. So with that, Sam, what a great day. I appreciate you coming on. I know we've worked hard. You're so busy between, you know, balancing, enjoying your life and working hard that sometimes it's hard to nail you down. And I appreciate that you took the time for us this morning. I know it was great information for the people listening, always great advice. And, you know, Sam Rawls is a fantastic attorney, Des Moines, Iowa. If anybody needs any help or co-counsel, or, you know, if you want to just shoot him an email, you know, his email is available on his website. Terrific guy. And again, thank you so much for your friendship and the relationship that we've had with you for so many years. And for attorneys that are listening, if you want further information about what we do on the marketing side, you want to have a conversation with Judy or myself about that. We both work together on helping law firms become successful. TheLegalAuthority.com/podcast. There's a form right on there where you can make an appointment to speak right to Judy, and you know, whatever we can do to help. A conversation's free. We don't bill by the hour for those.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, Sam, thank you so much for joining us today, man. I will talk to you soon. Enjoy some of that Blue Label we sent you.
I'm ready.
I thought the bottle would be next to you on the camera. I thought you'd be sipping and talking.
Not a good role model, Jay.
Well, you know, it's only noon where he is, right? So, but awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Legal Authority Podcast. As always, you can hear us wherever you get your podcast. Please also make sure that you subscribe so that you're notified for each new episode. If you have a question that you'd like answered on the show, or to talk directly to Judy Goldberg, just go to thelegalauthority.com/podcast. Until next time.